Bank of Russia raised its forecast for the profits of Russian banks in 2023, expecting results that may break the 2021 record. This year's high numbers are coming after 2022 became the worst annual period in 7 years for the sanctioned Russian banking sector in terms of financial outcome. Data from the first months of 2023 give the Central Bank of Russia, CBR, reason to believe that by the end of the year Russian banks can earn 1.9 trillion rubles, almost $24 billion, or even more, which is comparable to the profit for 2020.
Financial conditions by the world central banks in order to contain rampant inflation, that whole cycle that has put really strong downward pressure on risk assets, both in the fixed income world and in the equity growth world, is coming to an end. It looks really probable now in our research and in what we're measuring that sometime in the next quarter we're going to get a bottom in that cycle, and that actually the outlook will begin to improve quite substantially. It looks as if we're still going down in terms of economic output worldwide. We're still going down slightly faster than before, but that within a month or two, the downward let's say, deceleration in activity and in potential earnings will be slower. And that probably by the end of next quarter, according to our research, that it'll actually will begin to go sideways, which would be quite good news for risk assets.
Okay. The basic premise upon what you're basing it on was at the start there about central banks just slowing their activity. John, we've just had the highest increases in shelter costs in the United States since 1982. Why on earth should they take their foot off the pedal on inflation? As Carl Icahn put it, that is the root of all evil if they do that too prematurely.
Yeah, I would agree that inflation is the key element for a central bank, and that maybe the root of all evil would actually be deflation if I had to think about what destroys financial systems and what has really created huge problems for economic structures like current economies. But I would say that there are certain lags that are involved in inflation, and that it may be that let's face it, we had out of China about 2.5 years ago a viral event that affected the U.S. economy. Of 130 million people working in the private sector, 20 million lost their jobs in a space of about 3 weeks. The Federal Reserve, all the authorities had to respond, which they did, which meant by September, a lot of the damage had been contained. It was the shortest contraction in U.S. history. On the other hand, they were slow to rein in the money supply growth, which hit 20%, even though an economy which had fallen 10, rebounded 10, it left you at 10% excess money supply growth in 2020, September. And what did we see? In 2022, we had nearly 10% inflation. It is, I've looked at the research, worked on this, Milton Friedman, Anna Schwartz, inflation is everywhere and always, that's the quote, a monetary phenomenon. But the lag is 18 months to 2 years. You can have different prices going up. One will push another one out, but the overall price level seems to be a function of excess money supply. And that has been taken entirely out of the system. Actually, we have negative money supply growth in the U.S. year on year for broad money. It really doesn't come about very often. And the implications is that perhaps not this year, but the end of next year, the Federal Reserve will be worried about falling prices, not rising prices. So yes, we have to have inflation under control. Yes, you need a central bank that ensures that all the economic participants have a functional banking system and credit system. But it's
as well as the EU and the United States. Were you disappointed by the fact that the EU decided to insert some kind of mechanism whereby countries could pay in Russian rubles for Russian gas?
Yes, it's very disappointing that instead of a full embargo on Russian gas and oil, maybe with some transitional arrangement like exceptions, for example, for pipeline imports in those countries that are critically dependent, at the same time with kind of special duty or some escrow mechanism just to play it fair. Instead of this, there are ongoing, never-ending discussions how to do it. They're still paying every day around $1 billion to Putin to continue this war, and they're allowing these payments in rubles. Again, one can say that not paying rubles, in fact, they're just allowing the bank to transfer this money from euros to rubles and then to take it to Russia. So, first of all, it's a sign of weakness. And second, it allows Putin to evade any sanctions.
Walk us through how much Russian gas is still flowing through your pipelines, through your infrastructure.
Currently, it's around 60 million cubic meters per day. I would say that it's even less that the capacity, the book capacity of one of the entry points. There were two major entry points that were used for Russian transit. One of them was basically shut down by the occupation forces. We just told Gazprom that we could not be any longer responsible for the transit routes as entry point because of the occupation forces not allowing us to control our infrastructure. So we suggested that they move the transit, these volumes from this first entry point to this biggest entry point, but they did not do that. They're not utilizing even the existing capacity on this main entry point. It's a clear sign that they are at war with Europe. They want to put some European countries on their knees. They shut down supplies to Bulgaria and Poland. They started with easy victims for them. But it's really important now so that Europe shows solidarity and they do not leave even Poland and Bulgaria behind with such schemes as, for example,